Does it surprise you that this announcement has come out of Buckingham Palace today, particularly given that we saw Prince Philip happy and well at Lord's yesterday?
Well, it is a little surprising. On the other hand, when you think of his age, it is time, I suppose, for anybody at the age of 95 to be winding down significantly, and this will allow him to do precisely that.
At the age of 96, you say, he's been in office and by the Queen's side for a very, very long time. He has made an extraordinary contribution to the Commonwealth and Australia.
Yes, that's very true, and you need only go back to his very early years, before he even became the consort. There he was. He was at the Royal Naval College. He graduated and immediately volunteered. This was the beginning of the war, and he was in convoys protecting Australian ships going to Europe and coming back. And he played a significant role there. And even later, when the fleet was revived, a Commonwealth fleet was revived in Sydney with a view, it was based in Sydney, incidentally, the view was that this would take a significant part in the, not the occupation, but the conquest of Japan, which was obviated by the nuclear strikes on Japan. But the original idea was that we would have to go in and take that country, and we would have to have a fleet to do that, and there was to be a fleet based in Sydney, and he was there with that. And subsequently, when he became the consort of the Queen, he played a significant role in a number of matters. For example, he deputised for the Queen at the opening of the Olympic Games, the first ones in Australia, in Melbourne in 1956, and has been at our call whenever we wanted him to play significant roles. There's a great advantage in all sorts of activities. The Canadians use the royal family more than we do, but it is a significant thing in the eyes of the rest of the world to have some activity going on in another country with a member of the royal family present, and he has been very willing to help Australia in that regard.
Despite him being less visible, stepping down from the almost 800 organisations that he is involved with, you would assume that he would still very much be by the Queen's side, which he has been from when they were married, a little bit before that. How could the Queen have done as good a job as she has done, or as an effective job as she has done, without him by her side?
It's hard to imagine them separately because they were very much a partnership, and she obviously depended enormously on his support and his counsel. And notwithstanding the reporting of some of his banter, which has been exaggerated, of course, in the British press, he obviously has given her very sound counsel in the conduct of royal activities. And that's been very helpful in the same way that Albert was very helpful to Victoria. And they operate very much as a couple, as we know, and they're a very caring, loving couple.
You mentioned there the banter, often called gaffes in the British press. Do you think he's been fairly treated by the media over the years?
I think when you take a gaffe, which really is banter, trying to put somebody at their ease by saying something which is jocular and slightly ridiculous, if you then take that out of context and say how terrible this is and put it in the British press, I think it tends to misrepresent what he was doing, because the people, quite often to whom it was directed, thought it was funny, and they didn't complain about it. But then you had journalists who seemed to specialise in the UK in taking this out and making stories about it for the British press. I think he has been misrepresented there.
The statement from Buckingham Palace is that he will step down from his royal duties come autumn in the Northern Hemisphere, but the Queen will remain participating in public life as she has been. She stepped down from 25 of her organisations in December last year. Do you think there will be a time this year that we'll see the Queen stepping down from her duties?
I would be surprised at that, because she's made a commitment to serve. I think she feels that very strongly, that she must serve. She cannot abdicate. She would not consider abdicating as some other royal people do. I think she believes that she made a commitment when she, first of all, promised to the Commonwealth that she would give her whole life to the service of the Commonwealth, and when she took her oath at the coronation. And I think that she would only do that if her health required that she do that. I think she feels that she is committed to be the sovereign for her life, and she can't really depart from that.
How do you think the Britons and monarchists around the world will respond to this move by Prince Philip?
I think with great understanding, a little regret because we won't be seeing him as much as we saw him before, but a complete understanding because most people consider that you leave your public activities at an earlier stage. For example, in Australian politics, politicians very often decide that they need to spend more time with their families and they step down from their functions earlier than most other people. But in your 60s and 70s, most people are thinking that that's the time that you withdraw from public activities, and it seems to apply to almost every profession except the American Supreme Court, where they're appointed for life. But it is unusual to be still working at his age.
Do you think that this could reignite the Republican debate here in Australia?
I doubt it. I don't think they would be so foolish. They've learned from 1999 not to personalise the debate. They should really make it a debate about issues, and they've concentrated on, I think, a completely inappropriate debate, that is about the head of state. But that's another issue. But what happened in the 90s where it was personalised, particularly about Charles and Camilla, I don't think we'll see much of that now, and I think the Republicans seem to have realised that that is counterproductive and it doesn't help them, particularly when we have such a royal family which is so remarkably dedicated to service. Even the young princes, for example, who in another century might have turned out to be playboys, gambling and having lots of affairs. The young princes are very much committed to service, as we're seeing with Harry, who's coming out here for the Invictus Games. So it's a different situation. We also have, I think it's very important not to overlook this, this is a self-funded royal family. Even the British taxpayers don't pay for this royal family. It comes from the Crown estate, from the estates that the royal family has accumulated over the years, and it's the income from that, most of which is taken in a sort of tax by the British government. I think they allow the Queen about 15% of her own Crown estate income, but that is used to fund the royal family. We don't pay the royal family anything. We never paid Philip for anything that he performed here. Of course, his expenses, naturally, were covered, and those were pretty minimal. But we never paid, and we will never pay him, for example, a golden handshake or superannuation or anything like that. So it's a remarkable bargain.
You mentioned the young royals there. We see the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and Prince Harry getting involved. You mentioned the Invictus Games and also with mental health issues that the young royals have been very involved in. Do you think with Prince Philip stepping back from these almost 800 organisations, they'll pick up some of that slack, or will they choose different, more targeted organisations that they feel compelled to be aligned with?
I think they'll take up some of the slack, but they are moving into different areas, as the Duke himself did. He established the Duke of Edinburgh Ward for young people. It was his. That wasn't something that the royal family was involved in before, in such a massive organisation, a worldwide organisation. So I think they will also, as Harry has, with the Invictus Games in relation to the disabled in the military. And that's been a marvellous endeavour, and it's attracted interest not only in Britain and the Commonwealth, but in other countries like the United States and so on. So it's outside of mere monarchy.
Okay, well, David Flint, it's been fascinating to get your insight on the developments out of the palace today. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.